Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Limelight webinar. We'll get started in 1 or 2 more minutes, so we'll sit tight until then. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Limelight by Lutron webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started promptly at 2 p.m. Thanks for joining. This is a follow-up to a previous webinar we did in November last year regarding Limelight, which covered the system basics and the ideas behind Limelight. We'll review the system basics in this webinar, but this is primarily designed for a demo of the Limelight web interface. Powerful dashboard for you to access your system. So that's going to be what we'll spend most of the day today on. Before we move into things, I do want to say a big thank you to Western Lighting and Energy Controls. They organized this webinar today, and they're our Southern California Lutron representatives. They have cradle to grave support of their customers with technical support, design assistance, budgeting, submittals, programming, and as-builts. And they have 2 offices, one quite close to me here in Costa Mesa, and another a little further south down in San Diego, California. So thank you again, especially to Jim and to Jen for their help setting this up. So who am I? I know I've met a lot of you on the call here, but for those of you who I haven't met, my name's Andrew Snyder. I'm a senior design and development engineer with Lutron Electronics. I've either written the software for or led the software teams for all the products that you see on the screen here, including the Palladium thermostat and keypad in the upper right, the Vive load controls as shown with that POW pack in the center, the green device, and then our battery powered shades in the bottom left. So I did that during an 11-year time in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania at our headquarters, and I've been out here in Irvine, California for 2 years. When I'm not writing software or helping out our sales teams on the weekend, I enjoy hiking and climbing, and my current mission outside of work is to summit all 12 peaks in California that are above 14,000 feet. And I'm 6 in, and I have 6 left. This is me on top of Mount Williamson, the second highest peak in California last September. So that's a little bit of background information on who's going to be talking today. So let's get into it. As I mentioned in our November webinar, we covered some of the system basics, including the design rules and common design challenges. In our webinar today, we're going to cover 3 topics. Number 1, an overview. I want to make sure I don't leave anybody who's just joining us for the first time behind, so we'll spend a few minutes on a Limelight overview. We'll spend most of our time today with a software demo, looking at the power of the Limelight software, which is one of the primary features that people come to the Limelight system for. And third, we're going to highlight some specific Limelight-enabled fixtures that are available for purchase today. So let's get started with our overview. So I have 5 pictures to present to you guys, and I'm kind of looking for your opinion on if you see an issue. In this case, I have a parking lot that has some lighting fixtures. Looks like a pretty beautiful space. There's some nice landscaping. But unfortunately, in this case, there doesn't appear to be any occupancy sensors. The lights are on. I'm wasting energy illuminating this space, but no one's there. So an easy fix for this would be to add occupancy sensors to our lighting fixtures. In this second example, this is the Disneyland parking lot in Anaheim, California. The lights are on. In fact, one of them appears to be burnt out. But there's ample daylighting. and I don't need to have those lights on because the parking lot is fully illuminated. So a way to fix this would be to add daylight sensors, which you don't necessarily need the Limelight system to do. So let's get into a few examples where you really truly need something different besides simple sensors on your fixtures. Example 3. My occupancy sensors are working because there's a car here in the middle. The light above that car is illuminated. No one is around on the outskirts, so those lights are out. So occupancy sensors and daylight sensors are working as expected. But to me, this just doesn't feel safe. I'll call this the halo effect. In this case, I would really like a networked lighting control system so that I can control lights together as a group. And if you attended our previous webinar, you've seen these examples before, but here's a few new examples to see if you can spot any issues. Number 4 of 5. Appear to have some beautiful birds making a nest on top of my parking fixture. And in this case, there's not necessarily a problem here. There's ample daylight and the lights are off, so things look okay. But what I want to highlight here is that outdoor lights live in harsh environments. The birds could be pecking into the top of the fixtures. Damage and vandalism is possible, more so than indoor fixtures. So one recommendation I'd like you to consider when thinking about outdoor fixtures is the environment they live in. Ideally, we would have some type of a system that could detect issues with these fixtures and somehow report those issues to minimize downtime where the people who are using the parking area are not getting adequate lighting. And my 5th example here, I have some fixtures that have run their course. They're quite old. Not sure if the lights work, but these old fixtures may not work. And one thing we might look for in an outdoor system is a system that could track fixture runtime. That way it can proactively detect lamp end of life. So I don't have to worry about the lights dying. I can get a notification and fix them before they stop working. So those are 5 things to consider when thinking about parking lot lighting. Let's get into a brief overview of what our Limelight by Lutron system involves. The general question we want to answer here is what is Limelight? Limelight is a wireless outdoor lighting control system that is ideal for parking garages and parking lots. It consists of 3 components. Number 1, the gateway. The gateway is available in 2 models. One has an Ethernet connection, and the other has a cellular connection. The advantage of the cellular connection being that you don't need to run wires to provide a network connection for that gateway. This is especially preferred in areas where it's difficult to get networking to your system. The features that the gateway offers is that you can schedule events to turn lights on and off at a certain time of day. It connects to a cloud server so that you can access your system from afar and get email alerts for interesting things. It allows you to program occupancy and daylight settings to have the lights turn on and off either on their own or as a group. It allows you to group luminaires together, which I'll give you an example for using a parking lot at our Coopersburg campus when we get to the demo portion. And in the near future, we're going to be enabling BACnet for BMS, or Building Management System Integration. The second of 3 components in the Limelight system is the exterior fixture node. Every single fixture in the Limelight system needs to have a node, and the 2 options are going to be exterior, shown here, or interior mount, shown next after this. The exterior fixture node includes an occupancy and a daylight sensor built right in. That's the small blue item on the bottom. And it also has circuitry to measure power built into every fixture. This allows it to detect some common issues, which you're going to see when we get to alerts a little bit later. But if we know what the normal power usage is, we can detect abnormal power usage. For example, I'm trying to run the fixture at 100%, but it's not consuming any extra wattage. There's probably a driver failure in that case. So the external mount node can do 0 to 10 volt dimming, and it can also switch if you have a non-dimmable fixture. Supports up to 1,000 watts, and it supports mounting heights from 8 to 40 feet. You need to order the appropriate lens for that, whether it be a low, medium, or high lens, as shown in the model numbers on the bottom left here. Low goes from 8 to 15 feet, medium from 15 to 30 feet, and high from 30 to 40 feet. The third component out of 3 in the Limelight system is the interior or in-fixture node. Now, this is frankly what I would recommend and I would prefer. And the reason why is this is installed directly into the fixture by the fixture manufacturer. This image in the upper right here is a Cree fixture that has Limelight built in. And you can see in the center of that picture, right here where my mouse is, that the sensor is facing down to detect occupancy. So the reason this is preferred is because it's quite nice looking. It's subtle, it's built into the fixture, and it's easy for the electrical contractor to install this because all they have to do is run line voltage to the fixture. No additional wiring is necessary. This has all the same features as the exterior mount node, including these 3 bullet points here. And also it has the same 3 mounting heights that are available, just like I described in the exterior mount node. The only difference, as you can see on the left top of the screen now, is that this is a 2-piece solution. So you need the PIR device, which is this small device on the left. And that plugs in to the LLEN int mount, which is the radio that communicates with the system. So for those of you who attended our previous webinar, that's the conclusion of the review. We're going to get to the software monitoring and the web demo now. So the software monitoring that's available in the Limelight system is there's 2 varieties that you can choose. Number 1, a standalone parking area system just for a garage or a parking lot. In this case, my gateway communicates wirelessly to all the nodes. It also communicates to the Lutron cloud platform, which allows you to pull up the status of your Limelight system on an iPad, on any kind of a device that has an internet connection. The second option that you have is to connect this into an Enterprise View system. Enterprise View is a Lutron software package that allows you to look at interior and exterior lighting control systems, such as Quantum, Vive, and Limelight, in one software interface. So let's take a look. For any Lutron representatives or Lutron employees who are logged in, you have access to the Enterprise View demo at this address shown on the top, enterpriseviewdemo.lutron.com. If you don't fall into any of those categories, reach out to your local Lutron rep or whoever you talk to on the Lutron side, and we can walk you through a demo at your leisure for other folks who weren't able to join us today. So let's get into it. So this is the landing page for Enterprise View that's looking at my interior and exterior lighting systems. I'm not going to go into the Quantum and Vive portions of this, although reach out to us if you'd like more information on that. What I want to show you here is I'm going to click on Manage and see that I have 2 campuses underneath of this Enterprise View software platform. Enterprise View can be used to manage one campus or multiple campuses, potentially in geographically diverse locations. So for example, if I have an office in Boston, Massachusetts, and in San Francisco, California, I can pull them together in the same Enterprise View instance, so I can look at them and manage them as one. I'm going to click on our university campus here to take a look at what's going on there. And I can see on my university campus, I have 3 buildings with Lutron systems installed. University Hall in light blue has a Quantum system. The dark blue Vive View building has naturally via view. And our green building here is our west garage. That's where we're going to spend our time today. So if I click on west garage, I get brought to the Limelight by Lutron simple web interface. We're going to go advanced in a little bit here. This simple web interface is designed primarily to be used from a mobile device. So you'll notice there's not a lot of bells and whistles on this screen. And the real use case here is for someone in the facilities team to quickly and easily get the health of their system, or do things like send all fixtures to high for maybe a security walkthrough, or if they're monitoring security cameras so that they can see all areas of the space without actually having to physically walk it. Down below here, these are grayed out right now, and I'll show you how to activate these. These are individual fixture buttons. So let's click on my list of fixtures. I can see I have 4 in my demo system here. I'm going to click on fixture 101. And now you'll see I have a few options. I can flash this fixture to identify it. I can perform an instant test where I can do things like read power at various levels. That will allow me to detect some things such as a driver outage. The node is periodically pinged to see if it's okay, and I can update that status to confirm that it's okay in case I suspect there's an issue. And then also I can test the occupancy sensor so that I can walk around the physical space and make sure that the sensor sees me rather than waiting for the 10 or 15 or 30-minute timeout. And for the simple interface, that's basically it. We can view a map as well, but I'm going to dive into the advanced interface, which I think you'll find a little more interesting here. So through advanced setup, I can view a floor plan of my parking area, and I can quickly and easily see how each fixture is doing. So what I can tell at a glance here is that I have 5 fixtures. 4 of them are black. That means the lights are off, and I can confirm that by hovering over and seeing dim level is off. The health is okay. That indicates that the system can actively communicate with this node. It just happens to be off at this time. So you might be wondering about fixture 103. This is uncommon. I don't want to dwell here too much, but we're anticipating adding a 5th fixture to this test system we're using. So the folks behind the programming went ahead and added this placeholder, and there's not an actual fixture associated with it. So you likely won't see a fixture like this in a real life installation. Another handy thing here, especially when dealing with parking garages or parking lots that have hundreds of fixtures, is I can hide layers of the floor plan to make it easier to view. For example, I can see my gateway is located inside of the building in the upper center portion of the map. If I click on the gateway layer, that hides the gateway. And if I click on the fixture ID layer, it's going to hide those fixture labels, potentially allowing me to see certain parts of the map better. So these layers can be turned on and off like Photoshop or any other image editing program you might be used to. Okay, so that's the overview screen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get into a little bit of the programming screens to show you how to make common changes to your parking system. Number 1, event definition. Events are basically the programming that runs the Limelight system. So as an example, I might have the lights turn off at 8 a.m. or a half hour after sunrise. That would be a scheduled event, this first category here. The second category is reactive events. Now, those are things that react to the environment that the system is in, notably occupancy and daylighting. And lastly, you've actually already seen an example of this, the manual events. Manual events are things that overriding all the fixtures to all on for a half an hour. That's one example of a manual event that you might see. So you'll actually see that the manual event I triggered earlier, just a few minutes ago, is here, and it affects all of my fixtures. So let's rewind and start with scheduled events. A facilities manager is going to be able to access their system and make changes just like I'm doing now. Initial system setup would be done by Lutron Field Service. So all the nuts and bolts of assigning fixtures and addressing them, that would be done by Lutron. What I'm showing you now can be done by the end user or whoever has access to this web interface and has been granted permissions to log in. So let's look at an example. In this case, this sunrise to sunset event is actually an astronomic time clock event. So this is going to be the light level the lights go to during sunrise to sunset, which if I had to guess what this is set to, this is probably set to off. And I can confirm here in the programming screen that all of my light groups are set to off. If I wanted to change them, I can pretty easily check any of the other light levels, but I'll leave this as off because that's a reasonable place for the lights to be from sunrise to sunset. So let's dig in a bit to reactive events. These, again, are daylighting and occupancy events. So let's take a look at the occupancy event. What you'll see here is when I click on occupancy, 4 of these fixtures, which is 100% of the fixtures I have, are all highlighted. And what that means is they're selected. So all 4 of these fixtures are included in an occupancy group that will act together. This is how we solve that halo effect that we looked at earlier. So I clicked on edit to look into some of the details here, and I can see that all 4 of these sensors are selected. And in order for this group to turn on the lights, I just need one of those sensors to see occupancy. If 2, 3, or all 4 sensors see occupancy, that will stay illuminated. This is what you might expect from any other lighting system you've worked with. But just know that I can increase this and say maybe I need at least 2 sensors to see occupancy before I turn the lights on. That's an option for you. So before the lights turn off due to vacancy, you can set the threshold. And this is a typical number being used here. So I need all 4 sensors to agree that they do not see occupancy. So I've selected 0 sensors in order for this to be deactivated. When occupancy occurs, I'm going to go to my medium light level. If I wanted that to be brighter, I could click up here. If I wanted that to be dimmer, I could click down here. I'll leave that at medium for now. And the last thing I want to point out on this screen is the inactivity timer. So this is how long the occupancy sensors will see no motion before they trigger the lights go off vacancy event. So 10 minutes after occupancy, they'll trigger the vacancy event. And I showed manual events a bit at the beginning. So those are the 3 types of events: scheduled events, reactive events like occupancy and daylighting, and then manual events. Next, we're going to look at light group definitions. And in this simple example, I think you'll see pretty easily how we can configure these to meet our needs. In this example with 4 lights, I have 3 groups. One called all lights, which naturally includes everything. But then also, specifically for daylighting, I want to have 2 separate groups, inner row and outer row, that are closer to the building and further from the building respectively. And the reason for that in this case is that I want those lights to dim differently based on daylighting. I don't really care so much if these lights out here get dim, but I want to make sure that the lights close to the building are properly illuminated for the people that are close to the building. This is a subjective thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this everywhere, but I'm using this to illustrate the grouping functionality that's possible here in Limelight. So the one thing I do want to highlight is that a fixture can be part of more than one group. And you can see that here in that fixture 104 is part of the all lights group and the inner row group. That allows you to mix and match and create groups for whatever you might need them for. Flexible programming. So suppose I want to edit my inner row and I no longer want to include fixture 104. Well, it's exactly how you might think. Click Edit and simply select that fixture to uncheck it. I'm going to add it back since I don't want to modify the programming. Here's I've run into a programming change that's not allowed. I'll dig into that. Okay. So that's light group definitions. One way you might commonly use this if you have a particularly long aisle in a parking lot or a parking garage, you might create clusters of 4 lights that work together. So if any one of them see occupancy, they all turn on. If the next cluster of 4 sees occupancy, they'll turn on together. And again, one fixture can be part of more than one group. So fixture definition is the last option here in the definitions tab. And frankly, this is going to be used primarily by Lutron Field Service to do initial system setup. So what you see here is that I have 4 nodes that have been mapped in my system, and I have 0 nodes that have been found but not mapped. Lutron Field Service would come in and detect unmapped nodes and map them to the appropriate place on the floor plan. For example, to add fixture 103 whenever that comes online. I won't spend much time here since that will primarily be done by Lutron Field Service. The last thing I'm going to show here is the admin tab. Now, certainly permissions are a thing, so only certain users will have access to the admin tab. But what you're going to notice here is that I have the ability to add new users with certain permissions. So perhaps I don't want somebody to be able to change the light groups, and I might give them view-only access. And perhaps I want someone to have facility manager access. Those are different access levels here in this system here. So you can give people unique logins so that they have access to only the features that you want them to have access to. And another very useful aspect of this admin tab is that you can subscribe to certain alerts. So for example, if I'm unable to communicate with my gateway for some period of time, the periodic check-in message has failed, I would love to get a notification that I can't communicate with my gateway. That way I know that my next scheduled event probably isn't going to work because something happens to the gateway. So in this demo, I only have 1 user, but in a real instance, you might see 10, 20, 50 users here. And I would find the user with my name, Andrew Snyder, and then I would click on Gateway Status Error to subscribe to email alerts. Now, I'm not going to go through every one of these, but you can see that there's many alerts that are possible to be generated here, including things like a fixture failure. Maybe the LL-PIR module is not working, but the rest of the node inside of that fixture is working properly. We can actually detect an issue with the sensor and various others. The real benefit here is ease of maintenance. I don't want to wait for a user of the parking lot or parking garage to complain. I'd rather get alerts that there's an issue so I can send someone out to fix it right away. So that's the Limelight advanced demo in a nutshell. You can see that somehow the lights have changed, possibly due to, this is on East Coast time actually, so it's 5:30. The sun's going down, so the lights have come on to medium and high. Makes sense. And that concludes the web demo, the second portion of our webinar today. I also see that I'm getting some questions coming in. I'm going to read them and answer them after we wrap up the final section, which we'll get to now, and frankly will be quite short. So without further ado, let's take a look at a few of the Limelight fixtures that are available today. This is the full list of fixture manufacturers that currently have Limelight-enabled fixtures available. For any Lutron employees or Lutron representatives, this is available on the My Lutron website. If you aren't one of those two categories of people, reach out to your local Lutron rep or Lutron employee that you talk to, and we can get you this list. I do want to highlight one brand new fixture that has Limelight enabled by Cree, and it is the IG series of fixture. I did upload the handout, upload the spec sheet as a handout here in the GoToWebinar. So if you want more details, I have a link here. I know you can't click it, so I've uploaded it to the handouts. This particular fixture does indeed use the internal mount that we recommend. And the reason that we recommend that is because it's such a clean aesthetic, as you can see here. It's not a bolt-on to the side. You would use the bolt-on exterior mount node for those rare fixtures that we can't get the Limelight equipment built into for some reason or another. Few that are also available right now, the Alpha Light LVT series, and then there's two that are in the works. Our OEM team is always working with new fixture manufacturers to get this stuff built in. So the HE Williams VG1 and Extra Light Viento fixtures are currently in the works. So that's the end of the prepared portion of the presentation today. I will answer questions at this point, but for anybody who wants to jump off, thank you for attending. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, asnyder@lutron.com, or you can reach out to Western at customerservice@westernecs.com. So now I'll go through some questions before we wrap up the day. So the first question that came in is, under View, do we need to program IIS like quantum.webaddress.edu and vive.webaddress.edu and so forth? So I'll answer that question in two ways. Number one, if you have a standalone Limelight system with no connection to Enterprise View, then the way to access your system would be to simply go to limelightbylutron.com, and that's the same address for everybody. You would log in there using your credentials, and you would then see any systems you have access to. So it's nice and simple there. The second answer I have is, if you're using Enterprise View to look at Quantum, Vive, and Limelight together in one dashboard, then the web address is customizable based on how you commission it. So just as a reminder or new information, if anyone's not familiar with Enterprise View, that lives on a server in the customer's building. By default, there's an IP address associated with that. So you can open up your favorite web browser, Chrome or whatever it might be, type in the IP address, and you access View. But hey, IP addresses are hard to remember. So almost always people will assign some kind of a intelligent name to access it. Yes, you can assign a name, which I think is where the question is coming from. And just as an example, you'll see that in our demo instance, we've assigned a name of enterpriseviewdemo.lutron.com. So you can assign an easy to remember name to your View instance. Second question that came in, can gateways be ordered as a combo gateway, both Ethernet and cellular? The reason is, typically in a ground up project, Ethernet connection is not available. So cellular would be the best at the beginning, and then it can be switched to Ethernet later. At the moment, Mike, the answer is no. Those two model numbers are two separate products. I will take your feedback and bring that back to engineering. If we get that feedback in other places, we might consider updating our product. But at the moment, those are two distinctly separate models that cannot be used as double duty. Okay, and the last question we have, at least for now, unless anybody has more questions, is there a convenient way we can allow the police or fire department to override and go full on? Interesting question. I guess my first answer to that would be if they have access to a username and password that allows them to log into the Limelight by Lutron system, possibly. So I'm going to pull up Limelight by Lutron, and you'll see that you can type in your username and password. So if you were to share that with the police or fire department, they could turn your lights to full on. Okay, and one more question came in. Enterprise view. Could we have all different sites under our campus map? Good question. I'll give you a demo of that. A common misconception with Enterprise View is that you can only have one campus. That's why we've updated our demo to show two campuses here. Campi, whatever the word is. So I have my university campus here, and I have my city campus as a second campus. So to answer your question directly, can we have different sites all under our campus map? Sure, you can map this however you'd like, frankly. Whatever image that you give to us, we will draw the appropriate hotspot on to denote what that is. And if you want to give us an image that is a map of the US and has each state highlighted, which includes a building in each state or a campus in each state, that could work. But basically, the generic answer to your question is we can support one or many campuses. And within a campus, we can support one or many Lutron systems. All right, and that is the last question that we have. So I'll hang out for a few more minutes if you have any other questions. Again, reach out to me at asnyder@lutron.com or Western at customerservice@westernecs.com with any follow-up questions you might have. Thanks again for attending, everybody. Have a good day.